people, this is probably the last of the epoxying that needs to be done. Sorry for the crappy audio. This is the first time I've ever had to record a video. Now, the epoxy is being done for one reason. If you look over previous Facebook posts, it's to fill in basically voids that have been cut out from when these slabs were cut off using the bandsaw. There's a few snotty bits and pieces, mainly knots. If you look and you remember one piece over here, Sam, I think I addressed you in it. Basically there's some really big snotty parts that no matter how much sanding I do to get to the bottom of that voidy, banny thing, it's about 5 to 10 mils in some places to take off. That will leave basically a 30 mil slab down to 10, which is not what I want. I want a nice big thick chunky table. The black epoxy is exactly this. It's just an epoxy resin, 2-part, 1 to 5, West Systems 105 and 206 hardener. It's meant to be a slow hardener, but here in Queensland it goes off quite quickly, given that it's summer temperatures. Basically what you're looking at here is now the last of the epoxy. You saw a few like earlier today I had to sand it all back to do it again and all the fun stuff that went with that. This is the last one, and it's only a real thin coat to fill in voids, little bubbles that didn't get filled, mostly because of my technique, mostly being 90% of it. First time doing this, I'm doing this pretty rough and ready. Nothing special about it. If you look at one of the videos earlier today, the time lapse just preceding this, you may notice that I was using a blowtorch. That, no other reason other than the fact that it's brilliant for popping a few of the bubbles that come through. The bubbles are the things that have been destroying the finish in this. It's here, it's looking fantastic. Following this, there'll be another time-lapse video tomorrow because the epoxy takes about 18 hours to cure. Really it takes 24 hours to harden properly, but you can sand in about 18 given the temperature that we've got. Loosely between 30-35 with a fairly high humidity rate going. It's not going too badly. Tomorrow will be the last sand at whatever grades I need. If you want to know what grades of sandpaper I'm using, PM me, I'll tell you. Other than that, look, tomorrow begin on the same sandpaper I was using today. Then once that's off, go up the next level. Go up the next level, cut these to length, because if you notice I've got a great big voidy thing here. It's at the same at the other end. I'll put a track saw track across the top of it, cut that flat, do the same to the other side, and if I'm really special and I really want to, for the sakes of argument, one side of this table is wider than the other, so I think this side's 101, whereas I think that side's 99.5 mil or centimetres. So yeah, little bits and pieces. This thing's going fantastically. Guys, if you want to come and have a look at it, that's brilliant. No issues with that, but it's going to be finished within the next 2 weeks. Good afternoon, people and home gamers. Right, as far as I'm concerned right now, following up from yesterday, the table has received its final rough sand. It's now graduated to the point that the next sandpaper that touches this surface will now be the 185 grit. Then it gets its sanding sealer, then it goes to 250, and I'll do a check on the sand sealer, and if necessary give it another quick coat, and then take it up to the unheard of 320. Again, all on the rotary. But all cool. This thing's looking gorgeous. It's looking fantastic. Some of the epoxy bits and pieces down the table, bubble free. They're nice, they're black, they're looking brilliant. They're looking a little bit smoky and occluded, but the best thing about hitting it with increasingly finer grades of sandpaper will be those occlusions. That grade will be taken back to a polished surface and eventually taken through much further and further and further. As far as I'm concerned, once it's hit that 320 on the orbital, it goes to then 400, 600, 800, and then 1200 grit sandpaper. All of those are wet dry. It's going to look fantastic. Somewhere in there I'll also bring out the quadruple 0 steel wool, so that's 0, 0, 0, 0 steel wool. It is really super fine stuff. This is really fine stuff, and somewhere in there that's what I'll be using to apply my hard buffing oil all over the top of this, which should make it look fantastic, while at the same time providing another really smooth surface to cut again all of the epoxy, make it look fantastic. This thing's going to shine. Yes, it's an oil, but it's still going to have a really nice shine. I want it to be an oil, I don't want it to be a polyurethane on here. That's my thing. This is all experimental, this is my family's table, I hope. But it's looking fantastic. But more to the point, right now its next steps will be to get these cut off and then put a router bit over the top of the table to cut a 45-degree chamfer all down the edges, again starting on the end grain first, so 1, 2, 3, 4, make it look fantastic. The other side, the back side, will get a very similar treatment, so whatever depth I decide to have here, maybe 5 mils, maybe 3, I don't know. I'm just pulling prime numbers out of my head at the moment, so anywhere between 3, maybe 5, I don't know. Definitely not 7. So there'll definitely be a really brief chamfer around the side here. But if I go to what I was talking about yesterday, the back end is 995 millimeters. The front end is 1004 millimeters. There's a very brief distance. The final distance between here and here is approximately 2,300 millimeters. The grade on that is only going to be, what's that, 0.4% difference. Over that distance it's not really going to matter. Yes, there's a slight difference, but I'm happy with that. Guys, as far as I'm concerned, I'm about to go and get a bit of lunch. I'll see you on the flip side. We'll make this happen again. Hopefully today we'll have the beginnings of the end of this project. And good morning. Well, I'm sure you've just seen in the video, it's been on its final epoxy, it's had its final sand on the underside, it's been cleaned up on the edges, and it's received its routering on the underside. You saw how I had to flip it. Kid you not, this thing is not light. It's awkward, it's big. Let's face it, it's a lick under 2300 mil long, so what's that, 2.3 meters? I stand at about 1.90 m, so this thing's physically bigger than me. Yep, we've already worked out that it's about 1 meter wide. This thing's not light. It's the size of a door and 4 times as heavy. Right. Yeah, guys. Right now, this side has had its sanding. It was on 120 for the random orbital. It's now going to be going to 180, 240, and between the 240 and this 320, there will be a sanding sealer go over the top just to seal all of its pores, make it look fantastic, and when it comes time to be able to sand down, it's going to be looking the business. These bits of sandpaper here are loose at 240, 320, and that's so I can get in and do these edges at the same grips as these two. So that way my edges and about a foot underneath it will be the business. They'll be nice, they'll be smooth, they'll be really, really smooth. Won't be particularly hard because, let's face it, Camphor's not particularly easy, but it is going to be looking the business. You've seen me sand, let's keep cracking. Okay, well kids, this is now the final moment. Let's get the sealing happening. Basically, first off the bat, don't plug this stuff. I am however using it. These got some Pro Seal, just to give it a nice smooth sealing coat first. Backside, get all that done, get that dry, get my edges done nicely. Once that's dry in about, they say 20 minutes, I'm going to give it an hour, which is lunchtime. Yeah, then I'll flip it back over, give this a really touch of sand with some 400 paper, maybe 600, seeing how I'm going. Flip him over, then 2 coats of this if it needs it, definitely 1, and yeah, once that's dry, begin the sealing process. I'll